On August 31st of 2021, Google announced that expanded text ads would no longer be able to be created for search campaigns starting June 30th of 2022. So what that means is that moving forward past that date, responsive search ads are going to be the only ad format we can use in our search campaigns on Google Ads. This isn't the first time we've had a change in ad formats on Google Ads campaigns. A few years ago, they sunsetted the original text ad in favor of the expanded text ad. At that time, it was a little bit frustrating, but it wasn't a huge deal because expanded text ads were, as the name suggests, just bigger versions of text ads. We went from 2 headlines to 3, and we went from 1 description to 2. But overall, the functionality was very similar. This change is going to be quite a bit different because responsive search ads function a lot differently than expanded text ads. If you want to learn more about responsive search ads by themselves, you can check out this video we put together right here. But for this video specifically, what I want to talk about is the mechanics of this changeover and then give you some ideas and thoughts on what you can start to take action on today to get yourself ready for that deadline next summer. As I mentioned in the beginning, Google announced that starting June 30th, 2022, responsive search ads will be the only search ad type that can be created or edited in standard search campaigns. They say that it'll simplify the way you create search ads, which will make it easier because we'll only have one option, so it will simplify what we're doing. So what happens to your expanded text ads when this deadline hits? After June 30th, 2022, you'll no longer be able to create or edit expanded text ads. However, your existing expanded text ads will continue to serve alongside responsive search ads, and you'll still see reports on their performance going forward. You will still be able to pause and resume expanded text ads, or you can remove them if you need to. If you've been in the industry long enough and you remember the shift over that I mentioned earlier from text ads to expanded text ads, this is very similar. We'll still be able to run expanded text ads in our accounts. It's only the creation process that will be taken away, but you can pause and resume them. You will not be able to edit them and change any language. I actually still have some accounts that are still running text ad formats from way back in the day because they're still eligible to run and we can still let them get impressions. We just can't edit them or create any new ones. So although the headline that expanded text ads are going away can be very jarring, we're really just removing the ability to create new expanded text ads in the summer of 2022. So that's effectively the mechanics of what the changeover is going to be, what that deadline means. But now let's talk about what actions we think that you should take. And I'm going to preface the rest of this video by saying these are the suggestions that we have as of right now. If we find out more information, we'll bring something more to you. We'll maybe put together another video and talk about it. But as of right now, in September of 2021, these are the next steps that we think are going to be in your best interest as you prepare for this June 30th deadline. Starting from the expanded text ads perspective, what should you be doing to prepare for this change? In my opinion, you should get as many expanded text ads built in your account as you think you will reasonably use. This statement has the benefit of being both curmudgeonly because I want to get as many expanded text ads in my account as I can to bulk up and prepare for this changeover because I'm not a huge fan of it. But I also want to put a caveat in there that you should only create as many variants as you will reasonably use. If you go all in and you're very hard-headed about it and you create hundreds of different expanded text ads and put them in your account, all you're going to do is bulk up your account for management later on. It's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt if you have to sort through hundreds of different ads to try and find which variants you want. But if you do have messaging in mind that you want to test and you believe will be a message combination you want to use in the future, go ahead and start to put those together, get them in the account, even if they don't run right now, because again, you'll be able to activate or pause those ad variants moving forward. An easy way to get lots of expanded text ads in the account is to use Google Ads Editor. But if you do only create ads in the interface, I want to show you where you can create expanded text ads because Google has hidden it in recent months, which was kind of an indicator that they were going to make this shift over to responsive search ads. So let's hop into the Google Ads interface really quickly, and I'm going to show you how to create expanded text ads in the interface. I'm in our placeholder account, in a search campaign, in an ad group that have nothing in it. So when we create a new ad, we need to come over and click the blue plus button. And you'll see that the only options are to create a new responsive search ad or a call ad. To create an expanded text ad, we need to click on Responsive Search Ad, and then rather than filling in the information for a responsive search ad, we will come up here and click on the blue link that says Use Expanded Text Ads instead. Starting now, you're going to start seeing this warning that pops up that says you will not be able to use these after June 30th of 2022. And we're going to go ahead and ignore the threat that expanded text ads may result in fewer clicks and conversions, which to each their own. And then once we click the button, we're taken back to the regular expanded text ad builder that we've known and loved for many years now. So although Google has tried to bury it a little bit in the interface, you can still create expanded text ads in Google Ads directly. Now let's hop back into PowerPoint and talk through a few more expanded text ad considerations before we move on to responsive search ads. As you're building out your expanded text ads, use them to test specific message combinations while you still have control. This goes back a little bit to the amount of ads you think you'll reasonably use. Only create expanded text ads for specific tests that you have in mind that you want to make sure you get the data on before the ads become more dynamic in nature. If you have a specific headline 1, 2, and then description 1 combination that you want to test, get those expanded text ads in place and make sure that you can get the data to back up the decision of why you do or don't use a specific message combination for your clients or for your company. Lastly, expect that your expanded text ads will not get equal impression counts as responsive search ads, even if you have your ad rotation setting set to rotate as evenly as possible. In many accounts that I've been running for quite a while now, responsive search ads have been slowly taking over the impression counts, even if performance wasn't quite as good as some of our expanded text ads. And my guess is that that trend will continue as we get closer to that deadline and even beyond it. So while it is important to utilize your expanded text ads as much as you can to test message combinations that you really want to get stats for, don't be surprised if your responsive search ads continuously take a greater amount of the impressions and it becomes a little bit harder to get the data that you need with expanded text ads. So that's it for the ad format that's going away. What should we be doing to prepare for the ad format that's going to be taking over? What should we do with responsive search ads to be prepared for this shift over and make sure we have the best performance we can moving forward? The first thing is that if you have been a holdout and you've not been using responsive search ads, now is the time to start getting a responsive search ad active in every ad group within your search campaigns. This has been a suggestion from Google for quite a while, to be honest, and in many accounts I've tried it and then essentially turned them off because they didn't perform as well. But now I really need to take a step forward, get responsive search ads active, and start to test and iterate while I have expanded text ads as a backstop. Unfortunately, responsive search ads are going to be the future. We don't have a choice in this, and the more you fight it, the harder it's going to be for you to succeed past that deadline. So use this time not only to test the expanded text ads and the messaging that you want to try and get in place, but use those learnings to improve your responsive search ads, get a baseline set of data, start to set a benchmark, and test and learn and iterate and try and improve the performance for responsive search ads. The easiest way you can start to do this is by creating responsive search ads with the minimum number of components. You only have to have 3 headlines and 2 descriptions to create a responsive search ad. That probably sounds pretty familiar because that's exactly what an expanded text ad is. So you can start to get responsive search ads in place with just your 3 headlines and 2 descriptions. Aside from limiting the number of components, there are some other ways you can control the message that comes from your responsive search ads. You can pin certain ad components in place in your responsive search ads, meaning you can tell Google that you want something to show only in headline 1 or description 1 or headline 2 or something along those lines. There are some controls we have over what messaging will show. This is really important for those of us who want to make sure that we always have a call to action present, or for some folks that are in some highly regulated industries, if you always need to have some sort of disclaimer shown in your ad, pinning can be a huge benefit for this. I want to hop back into the Google Ads interface and show you how you can pin components of your responsive search ads. I've gone ahead and added a number of placeholder headlines and descriptions just so we can get this started, but you can pin different components of your ads, whether it's headlines or descriptions, by simply hovering over the section, and you'll see that as I do it, this pin off to the right shows up. If you just click on this pin icon, you'll see here that you can pin this headline and then you can choose a position. Right now it is in show in any unpinned position, which is recommended, but if I want this headline to only show in position 1, position 2, or position 3, I can easily choose that. So let's say I always want this to show up in position 1. Now it'll be pinned and it has a 1 next to it, so it will only show there. We can do the same thing for the second headline. Let's say that we want this to always show in position 2. Now that will show up with a 2 next to it. And as I mentioned, you can also do the same thing for descriptions. You can have these show up and you can pin them. And right now it says it's recommended to be unpinned, obviously, but you can show in position 1 or position 2. So whichever one you want to have, you can set that and it will always show in that position only. Pinning does have some great benefits, but there are some suggestions that Google has, and for the most part, I'm in line with our suggestions for pinning. So let's hop back into PowerPoint and go through Google's best practices for pinning ad components in responsive search ads. First, pinning one headline or description causes it to show only in that specific position, and it prevents other headlines or descriptions from showing in its place. So in the example I just showed, when I pinned headline 1 and 2 and description 1, only those components will show in those placements because I pinned them there. Nothing will take priority over them because nothing else is pinned. This next sentence is one that I kind of disagree with on Google's part. It says, since pinning reduces the overall number of headlines or descriptions that can be matched to a potential customer's search, pinning isn't recommended for most advertisers. Pinning can be a highly valuable tool to make sure that you're getting specific messages in front of your potential customers. And if you need to have that sort of control, pinning is a great option. But as we just mentioned, it does limit the number of combinations that can be shown to a customer. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that is a detriment and that means that it's not a good fit for most advertisers. No matter what your business is or what you're trying to do, if you want to have specific messaging in a specific order show up, utilize pinning to your heart's content. But know that Google will be a little bit irritated with you because that does limit their ability to show different combinations to your potential customers. So depending on whether the dynamic component of the ad or the control is more important to you, utilize pinning accordingly. The second bullet here says try pinning 2 or 3 headlines or descriptions to each position so that any of them can show in that position. This gives more flexibility to find out what headlines and descriptions perform better. This is something that I think is really important to call out. You can pin multiple different headlines or descriptions to the same position. In the example I showed before, I could have pinned 2 of those headlines in position 1. That would mean that each of those headlines could show in position 1, but they would trade off as to which one was showing. Google gives an example here of using official website language, where you have official website versus the official website. If you pin them both in position 1, they'll both show in that position and other messages won't show there, but you do have some sort of dynamic feature to where either the official site or official website will show up, and Google does have some ability to test and iterate and optimize based on which one is going to perform better for those customers. This is a great practice if you want to make sure that you always have a specific disclaimer or call to action shown in your ads, but you're not sure which one performs better, or you're willing to have multiple different ones show. Maybe you craft 3 or 4 different call to action headlines and you pin them all in position 2. Google can then rotate through each of those different call to action messages in headline 2. Google can then rotate between the different messages you have and end up showing the one that is going to perform the best. The last couple of bullets talk about the mechanics of how responsive search ads are going to work. If you have headlines and or descriptions pinned to all available positions, the unpinned headlines and descriptions that you have in that ad will not show. So if you have 12 headlines in an ad and you have different headlines that are pinned to position 1, 2, and 3, and there are a handful of positions that are not pinned, those unpinned headlines will not show because other headlines are already pinned to all available locations. Lastly, headlines or descriptions pinned to headline 1, headline 2, or description 1 will always show because that's the way the ad unit works. We will always have a headline 1 and a headline 2 and a description 1, but anything pinned to headline 3 or description 2 may or may not show up in the same way that those ad components may or may not show up in your expanded text ads. That functionality will be the same, so keep that in mind as you're pinning and making sure that you have certain messages show up. If you have to have that call to action or that legal disclaimer, it's likely best that you make sure that it's found in headline 1, headline 2, or description 1 so that it will always show. One thing that is not noted in this list here, and that I couldn't find on any help articles, but has been circulating around with the online community that I engage with on PPC, is the impact that pinning different components to responsive search ads will have on your ad strength. As I mentioned, when you pin different ad components in place, you limit the number of combinations Google can create in your responsive search ad. So by doing that, you will have an impact on your ad strength metrics that Google reports in the platform. But it's important to know that this is different from your quality score. Pinning different components to your ads will not impact your quality score, which feeds into your ad rank, which then impacts how often your ads are shown. But it will change your ad strength, which is going to be a reporting metric you see in the platform, very similar to your optimization score that Google gives for your account and individual campaigns. If you read the definition of the ad strength column, ad strength is an indication of the relevance and diversity of your ad combinations. Having more relevant and unique content can help you get the right ad in front of your customers and improve your ad's performance. So with ad strength, Google's not only looking for relevance, but it's also looking for diversity so it can show lots of different messages and unique combinations to your customers. Here's an example of a responsive search ad that has an average ad strength in one of our accounts. When you hover over the average message, it says try including more keywords in your description. If you then click on the improve ad message, it'll bring you here, which is a portion of the responsive search ads builder. And you can see each of the different components that feeds into ad strength. And some of them have the green check mark, but the one that is down at the bottom here is why we ended up with the average score. It wants us to make our descriptions more unique. But the other components are that we need to have a certain number of headlines. We should include popular keywords in those headlines, and we need to make sure that our headlines are unique. So each of these factors is going to play into the ad strength number that you see in the interface. But again, this will not impact your quality score and how often your ads are shown, but it will be something that shows up in your account. So if your boss or your client is in the account from time to time and they see this metric, it's important to tell them how that metric is created, what makes it up, and how it's going to impact your actual performance. Next, I want to talk about reporting, because responsive search ads do have quite a different set of reporting than expanded text ads. Overall, in the interface, a responsive search ad unit will show all the same stats that expanded text ads will. The problem is the individual ad components will be graded on a different scale. So you'll be able to see that your combination of however many headlines and however many descriptions, whether they are pinned or not, you'll be able to see all the different metrics just like you would for an expanded text ad. But when you try to look at the individual components, you're going to miss out. So let's hop into an account and I'll show you what I mean. As you can see here in this ad group, we do have 2 line items for responsive search ads, and then multiple different line items for expanded text ads down below. And this is where I'm saying at the ad unit level, you'll be able to see all the same metrics. You can see clicks, impressions, cost, conversions. All of this will be the same for expanded text ads as it is for responsive search ads. But since responsive search ads have a lot of different components, it doesn't necessarily mean that the line item that we see here, just as it's shown, is going to be the ad unit that shows up. So you can come over and click View Asset Details to find the performance levels for each of the components within the ad. The problem here is we're not going to be able to see any of those other metrics aside from impressions. This is the only metric that we will see for each of the headlines and descriptions that shows up. The only performance indicators we're going to get for this are going to be this performance column here. So we have learning, good, best, pending. These are going to be some of the different types of language Google tells you how your ads and the individual components are performing. Here you can see off to the right that some of these have a lot more impressions than others, and you can see the individual combinations of the ads by clicking on this combinations tab. I'm not going to do that right now because we'll end up just having to blur out a lot and you won't see a ton. But the biggest thing to take away here is we need to start to understand how these different performance indicators are utilized by Google to show our ads. Here's a chart Google gives us as the key to the individual asset performance rating line items. So pending means that this asset doesn't have any performance information yet, but the rating will show up once it does. Learning means that it still needs to get more information collected before it can give some sort of a rating. Low means that it's one of the lowest performing assets and that you should likely replace that asset. Good means that it's performing relatively well, and you can keep that asset or try adding more to improve performance. And best means that that is one of the best performing assets of its type, whether headline or description, and you should add more things like that. The unrated option down at the bottom basically means that you might not have enough data to decide how something is performing, or there might not be enough assets to compare it to get a relative score. It's hard to say what's best if you don't also have a good and a low performing component as well. The minimum amount of impressions you need to have to start seeing the performance data come through is around 5,000 impressions in the Google search top segment over 30 days. So that's going to be the minimum amount you need to have to start seeing these asset performance ratings. Unfortunately, the biggest takeaway I have for these is that the good, best, low performance is based on what Google thinks is the good performance of your ad. This does not mean that it's going to optimize for the lowest cost per conversion, but it also doesn't mean that it's not going to do that. There's kind of a moving target when it comes to what Google considers the top performance of your ad. It's likely some combination of click-through rate, conversion rate, and some other metrics that indicate to Google whether your ad is of high value. But again, Google has to be beholden to those users on the other side to make sure they have a good experience. If people stop searching on Google, Google has no business model. So although we would really like them to focus on our conversion actions, performance in this case does not mean conversion performance. So you might find that there are specific components that Google rates as the best, but don't actually drive higher conversion performance for your campaigns. This is just something we're going to have to live with moving forward. And with that, I have a couple of last thoughts at this moment in time about this changeover and what you should be doing moving forward. First is that we have 10 months of lead time, so there's plenty of time for you to start prepping for this change and getting your accounts ready for that June 30th deadline. This is probably the longest we've had for any sort of major announcement like this of how it's going to impact us. Make sure that you take advantage of this lead time and don't just wait until May of 2022 to start getting things changed over. Although you might be a little irritated right now, fight the urge to hold too tightly to the control that you have over the campaigns with expanded text ads versus responsive search ads. We've talked about limiting the number of components down to 3 headlines, 2 descriptions, and then pinning things in place so they always show up. So effectively, you can still make expanded text ads, but that is going to limit Google's ability to test things moving forward. And to be quite honest, don't expect that to stick around indefinitely. There likely is going to be some sort of intervention if people try and hold too tightly to that control to where you won't be able to pin as many things in as many placements, or you'll have to add multiple more components to your ads to make sure that they're eligible to run. And lastly, just with everything else, advertisers who actively test and lean into Google's changes will likely come out on top. That does not mean to swallow whatever they tell us is a, quote, best practice, unquote, and just accept it as truth. But you do need to make sure that you are trying to take advantage as much as you can of the things that Google is leaning into. So the machine learning, having ads be dynamic for different customers while still exerting the control you need over your campaigns. Don't try and hold on too tightly, but also don't just let everything be automated because then you don't have any control at all. But you do need to make sure that you're moving the account forward and keeping in mind where Google is trying to go, because if you do that and you can ride that wave, you're probably going to be doing pretty well for the next few years. This shift from expanded text ads into responsive search ads did not really come as a surprise to many of us who've been paying attention to the changes in the platform and how the interface has been working, but it is still a bit of a blow to the control that advertisers can have over campaigns. Unfortunately, it's also likely not going to be the last change of this type, and it's probably not going to be the biggest that we have over the next few years. So make sure that you're preparing your accounts, whether it's from the expanded text ad side or the responsive search ad side, to put you and your clients' accounts in the best position moving forward once we hit that June 30th, 2022 deadline. As I mentioned, everything in this video is the best set of information we have as of September 2021. If something else changes, we'll do our best to bring you that information. But if you have any questions or any additional suggestions about this changeover, feel free to share them with us in the comments below. Thanks for watching our video. If you thought it was useful, give us a thumbs up below.
We release a new video at least once a week, so if you want to get notified of when a new one comes out, be sure to subscribe to the Paid Media Pros channel.